Hi everyone, welcome to our event. This event is brought to you by DataTalksClub, which is a community of people who love data. We have weekly events, and today is one of such events. If you want to find out more about the events there is a link in the description. Click on that link and check out all the other events. And today, in addition to this one, we actually have another one, which is a workshop about data engineering. We will learn about DLT, data load tool, so check it out. Then do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This way you'll stay up to date with all our future streams. And last but not least, do not forget to join our data community. There you can hang out with other data enthusiasts. During today's interview, you can ask any question you want. There is a pinned link in the live chat. Click on that link, ask your questions, and we will be covering these questions during the interview. Now I need to stop sharing. Just in case, let me actually open the stream on my phone. So if you write anything, I'll see that. So, hi everyone. I see that 20 people are here with us today. So thanks for joining. And the questions. Okay, so I have the questions open and we can start if you're ready.
Yes, I think I am.
Okay, let's roll. So this week we'll talk about data-intensive AI, and we have a special guest today, Bartosz. Bartosz is an AI and data engineer. He specializes in moving AI projects from the good enough for a demo phase to production by building testing infrastructure and fixing the issues detected by tests. He also teaches programmers and non-programmers to use AI. And he is a public speaker, and he contributed to a book called 97 Things Every Programmer Should Know.
So there is a mistake there. That should be every data engineer should know.
Okay, 97 things every data engineer should know.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah. Actually, my colleague, ex-colleague, he now works at Meta, I think, also wrote a chapter there.
So, yeah, cool. It was a very community-based book.
Yeah. So, like, was it 97 authors or?
No, there were people who contributed 2 or 3 chapters, I think, even. But there's only mine, and it's about testing.
Okay. So you like testing, right?
Well, like is maybe not the right word, but I do it. And
okay, you don't dislike testing.
I accept that we have to do it.
Because many engineers, many developers have, they are not fans of writing tests.
Yeah.
And well, the way I sometimes do things is I start a project and then it kind of works, and then, okay, now I know it will start falling apart, so probably I should start covering it with tests. So I never follow like Kent Beck. I don't do test-driven development because for me, this is so difficult. Like, starting with the test and then, making sure it fails. But we will talk about that, right? Anyways, yeah, welcome to our interview, Bartosz. And
hi.
Yeah, the questions for today's interview are prepared by Johanna Bayer. Thanks, Johanna, for your help. And before we go into our main topic of data-intensive AI, let's start with your background. Can you tell us about your career journey so far?
Oh, okay. So I started as a Java developer many years ago. I worked for the banking industry, and then I really cannot say a bit. Say it out loud, so maybe let's skip it.
Okay.
Then I moved to data engineering. Well, first of all, I wanted to be a data scientist, and I was for a few months at a startup. Then I realized that this is not for me, and I really prefer putting those things in production than really doing. So I switched to data engineering, and it kind of stayed like this until I discovered MLOps. So I could go back to machine learning, but in a part of it that I could handle, so deployment, testing, stuff like this. And I kind of stayed in this area. And then now I switch to more AI engineering, let's say, but still in relation to data. So I avoid building like backend applications or something like this, more data pipelines. If there is AI, then it's even cooler, but let's stay with data.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. We had a kind of similar career path because I also started with Java development and I also worked at a bank. And this was in Poland too. And then I thought, okay, like enough banks, like I cannot think of all these options, futures, and all this stuff. Like I just want to do data science. And yeah, here we are talking about engineering, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, so you have a very nice blog with a lot of articles there. So apparently you like writing.
Yes,
And yeah.
yes, that's true. I try to do it every week. I cannot
Uh-huh.
promise that I will do it every week because, for example, I skipped the last one. But this is not something I intend to do. The
Hmm.
goal is that every Monday there should be something published. It wasn't always like this. I tried different schedules, like 3 times a week. There was a time when I decided to publish something every day for 100 days. And it was a terrible time. I will never do it again. But on the other hand, it was also kind of interesting because you run out of ideas after 20 days and then you have to do something.
Hmm. Yeah. So did you actually write a blog post every day for 100 days, or was it something else?
Uh, I published every day for 100 years. I was trying to write 2 blog posts every day, so I have some backup for later time when I don't want to do it anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, so I remember, I think it was during COVID times when I wanted to do 100 days of LinkedIn. So every day I would make a post on LinkedIn. And exactly like you said, after 20 days, I was like, what should I post about? Like, where do I
Yeah,
get ideas? And then you start looking for ideas everywhere, like around you. I had a notebook, and then I have an idea, and then I quickly write it down so I don't forget. But it was so exhausting. Like, I was burnt out after, like, I don't know, a month. So,
yeah.
but
Now
it,
I'm publishing every weekday on LinkedIn, and it is
mhm,
similar to your experience. Although this is, I think it's kind of easier right now because a lot of things are happening in AI, so we can just
mhm,
write about this.
mhm.
Yeah. So
And for how long have you been doing this, writing?
blog or LinkedIn?
Blog, LinkedIn, whatever. Like, you've been writing
Blog,
for quite some time.
blog since 2017, I think.
That's nice. That's like 8 years?
Yeah, there's like 480 something articles on the blog. I have
Or
very
100.
recently
Wow.
480.
Okay, so
Uh,
almost 500, right? So
yes, I was
in
actually
20
checking
weeks.
if I already wrote 500 and still no.
Okay. And before you were writing, so right now you write about AI, and before you were writing about data engineering, data science,
This
these
was
kind of things,
pretty
right?
much whatever I was doing at work, related to work, I was writing about something similar. Yeah? Obviously, I was write exactly what I was doing, but I could do something similar.
And how did it happen that you wrote a chapter in this 97 things every data engineer should know? How did it happen?
Well, I noticed that they were looking for contributions, and I just sent some. Yeah,
Okay.
I, I can say I just volunteered.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just wondering to what extent your blog was useful in making this happen.
Well, it was because I used my one of the articles on the blog as the
Uh,
contribution. So,
so you already had the article, you just sent
yes, I
it.
already had it. I just sent it and was accepted.
So what are the 97 things every data engineer should know?
Well, in my case, it was the thing that there are few words you don't want to hear as a data engineer, and those words are this number doesn't look correct. when you first open the dashboard, because you immediately lose the trust. Well, they don't trust you anymore. Yeah, if you make a mistake like this. So it was the observation that started text about the importance of testing and verification of the data.
So why tests are important? Why should we run them? And how is it related to this phrase, like when somebody says this number doesn't look correct? How is it related to testing?
Well, because if, for example, you have your data pipeline and you cannot prove that it works correctly, then how you are going to prove that this number is in fact correct? Yeah. So you need the test to prove it. Okay, of course, we can argue if software tests prove that something worked correctly, or if they only prove that you cannot detect a bug with what you have. But it is kind of a different discussion. Yeah, you at least have the test first, then we can wonder if they are good enough.
So at least you have some certainty that your pipeline is overall functional, right? And then if somebody says this number does not look correct, you can say, yeah, it should be right, but let's try to figure out why you think so, right?
Yeah, and you have something you can rely on while debugging, yeah? Because when you see a behavior and you see that there is a test for it, then you know that this was intentional, not that, okay, maybe this is wrong, because now I don't really remember what is supposed to be there.
How do we create tests for data pipelines?
Well, I would say that, as you said in the beginning, it's often easier to not start with tests. And I agree with that right now. That wasn't always the case that I was agreeing with this, but yes, I do agree. So just make it run, and then you can start seeing what are the outputs, and then decide, okay, this is okay, so I will maybe use this as a test case. And this is probably the easiest way. It might not detect all of the errors right away, because you will probably skip the edge cases, being too optimistic about your own code. But you have a starting point. I used to think that test-driven development is the way to do it, but I will not maybe push it anymore. Not that it doesn't work, it just kind of
Maybe it's more
time-consuming to learn.
difficult for
Yes,
data
it is more
engineers.
difficult in data engineering because it's not like you're testing one single function like this 8 lines long. You have the pipeline. There's a lot of things that has to happen. You have to prepare the data first. So that's not convenient. And maybe convenience is not the thing you should worry about when you are testing, but still do. Yeah, we don't want to do something that's difficult.
What kind of tools? And first, maybe like correct me if I'm wrong, but what you suggest is we create a data pipeline, and then we have some sort of integration test or some sort of.
Yes,
so it's
yes,
not
yes.
like a unit test, but we run our
I'm not
pipeline on some
sure.
data.
Yeah, I'm not sure if integration test is the right way to do it, but definitely unit tests are kind of not very useful in data pipelines. So we have to do integration tests.
So what we do is we have some
Well,
sample of data, we run it through the pipeline, and we expect that, okay, this is the input and this is the output, and we check that the output from the data pipeline is the same as the output we expect, right?
yeah, that would be probably some kind of snapshot testing, you can say. But if you prepare this data, the input data first, and you know what is that, and you can even probably name the tests according to the business rule that you are testing. So you're basically doing something like test-driven development, but maybe not in the same order as you are supposed to, but kind of at the same time. So I think it still counts.
Yeah. So if your data pipeline is a Python script that uses pandas, it's relatively easy, I think, to test, because then you can, create some functions and then you can test these functions with unit tests. If it's a Spark job, then it's more straightforward. It's less straightforward maybe than the Python script, but still you can isolate some of the functions, like with, I don't know, UDFs, whatever, And there are some tools for Spark, for PySpark, or for Scala or Java, where you can test it, right? But I'm just curious, are there tools that work for all data pipelines? Or how do you
Probably
even
no.
choose the tools like for testing?
But I work with Spark, so
Uh-huh.
I agree with what you said, that you can always configure the pipeline externally and then switch between production and test. And this is how we were doing it. I will not say that there are tools for every type of pipeline because probably there are some edge cases where you don't have tools. I'm just not aware of them because I work with Spark mostly.
Mhm. So I remember at the company where I used to work, what was popular is basically writing a bunch of SQL queries. And that was more difficult to test. And the way we solved it, we used tools similar to Great Expectations and Soda. So this kind of like you can define some checks and then run these checks after each step of your pipeline finishes. But they are basic things like, okay, you expect a number to be like the number of columns to be between this and that, or I don't know, there are no null values and things like that. Did you
Yeah,
use anything like that?
there are basic tests, but if you are doing a join and you don't have columns, then apparently something didn't work. So
Yeah.
you can catch some errors. Yeah, Great Expectations were one of the tools that you can use for this. I think in case of SQL, can do some templating, yeah, like replace the names of the tables with some test tables, and it's also going to work well.
And would you recommend to use Spark today, like for new projects, or you would choose something else?
I would use Spark because I'm familiar. I'm not sure if this is the best tool you can use. Probably, well, if you have a team that knows how to use Spark, then yes,
Hmm.
it is still the best. If you have
Hmm.
a team that has no experience, then also use Spark because there are a lot of tutorials. So I think
Hmm.
Spark is here to stay at least for some
Hmm.
time.
Yeah. Because in our data engineering course, we still teach Spark, and this is what I used, and this is what I see that companies still use. But I'm wondering if this tool is chosen for new projects. Because sometimes maybe it's easier to just write a bunch of SQL queries and run them on your, I don't know, BigQuery or Snowflake
Well,
or whatever.
at one of the previous companies, we were building a MLOps platform, and we had a part of it that was processing the data from the logs, and we used Spark, and it was pretty new project. Yeah? It was the feature was not that before,
Yeah.
so we just choose Spark. Even though most of the developers that were backend developers, they have not
Hmm.
had no experience in Spark, then
Hmm.
Spark was still the easiest thing to do.
Hmm. And we've talked a lot about data engineering.
Yeah.
In your opinion, so here we wanted to talk about AI, right? And we call it data intensive AI.
Kind of connected, yeah.
Yeah, so this is my question. Like, how do you think it's connected? Like, what's the connection between data engineering and all these AI tools, LLMs that we see these days?
Okay. So first of all, so you can use AI in your pipeline. It might not be the smartest thing to do because of course they hallucinate. So then you have a lot of bugs to fix later if they do it at the wrong time. Uh, but that's something you might try. Another thing that is kind of a connection, if you want to fine tune an AI model, then you definitely need a lot of data. You have to pre-process it. It's a job for data engineer. Okay, maybe machine learning engineer, but they will probably don't want to do it if just fine tuning. So data engineers again. And even if you do backend, then in the end you will have some logs, and that will be interesting thing to get data from. even if the data is just going to tell you that this model doesn't work well, and you have to tune something, yeah, it's still some information, and you have to get it somehow. So you always need data engineers.
Mhm.
Not the right scale, of course. If you have 10 examples, then maybe not.
I was also curious, like how your journey looked like, how you switched from doing data engineering and all this engineering to focusing more on AI. Was it something you liked, or was it something you needed to work on and learned, or like how did it happen for you?
Well, I wanted to switch to data science from backend engineering. Then I ended up being data engineer, but I still wanted to do some machine learning. So I was kind of in between those two places. Then I became an MLOps, and it was kind of the thing that I wanted to do, yeah, because it was
Mhm.
sort of data engineering, sort of machine learning, still some backend, so I was familiar with the things I was supposed to be doing. So yeah, this is how.
Mhm.
It was kind of
So it was like because you wanted, can I say passion driven? Passion driven because you wanted to do that and you saw this thing and you thought,
yeah,
okay, this is something I want to try.
yeah, probably you can say it like this. Uh, was also kind of being not very satisfied with backend engineering anymore.
Mhm.
So I wanted to try something new.
Okay, interesting. And can you tell us about some use cases of AI that you worked on?
Well, okay, so of course the typical retrieval augmented generation, yes, you have a database of whatever, and
That's
you
very
have to
data
query.
engineering. That's like, I think, sorry for interrupting you, but like when I learned about RAG, I thought like, yeah, and this is called AI engineering. This is just, connecting data.
Yes,
You have data in one
exactly.
place and then you need to fetch it. It's
It,
like
yeah,
data
that's
engineering.
why I think that AI engineering is not going to survive as a separate role for long. I think it's going to be data engineering again. So yeah, so this is one of the use cases, obviously. But I think the most interesting things that you can do with AI is when you don't even see that this is AI. Like some report that tells you some data based on text. For example, I was doing a project when we were analyzing the reviews from Google query, and the goal was to find out what works at a particular location of the company stores and what doesn't, and create a report on this. And it was not screaming to the user, this is made with AI, but it was. You needed AI to analyze the data. And it was not a chatbot, it was not a summarize with AI button or whatever you do to use AI. It was just there in the background. And I think this is the most useful thing for AI. You don't need to show everyone that you are using it. You can just do it and make it the whatever you're doing a little bit more useful.
Mhm. But it's also marketing. If you show people that you use AI, it's easier to attract investment. It's easier to attract
It's
people, I
easier
guess.
to attract investment, but is it easier to attract the users? Because I think that two camps, yeah, people who like everything with AI and people who absolutely hate it.
Right. Because I see now, like, I live in Berlin, and I see that now if I take subway, I see posters like banners.
Mhm.
Samsung now with AI. And like, okay.
Yeah, everything needs AI now
Yeah.
apparently, but do users need it? Like, okay, they
Like,
might need it, but do they need to know that they're using it?
mm, like I'm curious what kind of AI, because like I imagine machine learning models have been around in mobile phones for quite some time, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you are using an app where you can type anything to search for pictures, this is using machine learning. You have to recognize what is in the picture, but you don't have to tell people that this is machine learning or AI or whatever. Just a feature that works.
I think Google tell that, like in their, like when they advertise their cameras. I don't know, I guess their marketing department is not stupid. So
It
there must be
probably
why they do
works,
this.
but I
Yeah.
just wonder if you need it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
saying that something is built with AI, it's pretty much like saying that it was built with Spark.
Hmm. Yeah,
Who
right.
cares about it? Yeah, it was just supposed to work.
Right. And, yeah, you wrote a lot of posts. You said like 480. One of them was about prompt engineering. So can you tell us more about the content of this blog post
Okay.
and what exactly is a good prompt?
Okay, so it kind of depends on the model, but there are a few things that work always or almost always. So first is called in-context learning, and this is a fancy name because in AI we need fancy names for everything that is easy. And it just means give the model some examples. And it works because you are explaining what is supposed to happen in a similar case. So the model can use this information to, well, pretty much imitate what you have done with the example and respond in a similar way. It's especially useful if you need some specific format, like JSON with some keys or whatever, then it's probably going to do it as in the way you expected. If not, then you can just put more examples there. Another thing that was useful for a long time was chain of thought, but of course with all of those reasoning models, they have it kind of built in. So for those, you don't need it anymore. And there are all of the things that you can say to are prompting tricks, like saying think step by step or offering the AI some tip, like $100 for doing it right or whatever. And this is not prompt engineering. Yeah? This is some trick that maybe works for someone once for one particular model, and they just made a screenshot of it because it was cool. The proper prompt engineering is something more like providing examples, explaining how things are supposed to happen. This is prompt engineering. Yeah? And I think it still works for all of the models. For some of them may be better, for some may be worse, but
Is
at the
it
very
becoming,
least, yeah.
yeah, I was just wondering if it's becoming less important for models like GPT-4o compared to GPT 3.5, because 3.5 was a good model, but was not as good as 4o, right? So there we needed to spend more time creating a good prompt.
Okay,
And here
so
it feels like it just gets it.
it gets it, but if it doesn't get it, you can either describe it in detail or just provide an example.
Uh-huh.
And I think examples work better.
Mhm.
So as I said, this is the in-context learning technique with this prompt engineering. So it sounds weird, but providing an example is prompt engineering. We just gave it a fancy name.
Can you give us an example of how can we give an example?
Okay. So for example, that's going to be terrible. So you are doing something that is supposed to analyze, let's say, sentiment of a sentence, yeah, to make
Mhm.
it easy. And you have one review and you say that, okay, this thing is positive, the other thing is negative, and you need this in a very specific format. Like you want to parse it with Python, so it has to be JSON. So you
Mhm.
can either explain that, okay, give me valid JSON with this key or whatever, or you can provide example of the review and then the answer with actually the JSON. Put the JSON
Mhm.
in the prompt, and this is going to follow this even without you saying that I need JSON with this key, because
Mhm.
what showing that you wanted JSON with this key, so it's going to
Mhm.
do the same. And it doesn't sound very fancy, but that's probably the good thing about it. Yeah, you don't have to think how do I explain it. Just show it.
Mhm. But also, the bigger our prompt is, the more money we pay. So I'm wondering how many examples we should actually include. Because if we talk about sentiment analysis, maybe it's not always enough to just include one positive example and one negative example. Sometimes we want to include more. And if we do this at scale, then maybe including more examples in the prompt becomes expensive.
Yeah, and that's why I would recommend testing. Well, I mean, gathering the data from tests. So you prepare some evaluation data set with the inputs and expected outputs, and then you are measuring how well the model is performing. And at some point, when you keep adding examples, you will get good enough results, and it will stop improving. So we can just stop at this point. Also, I have discovered recently that there is a part of AI engineering that is dealing with prompt compression. So apparently you can get rid of some of the tokens from the prompt, and the model is still going to do the same as if you kept them there. I cannot explain it yet because I'm still learning about the concept, but I find it interesting. Yes, so just a thing to remember that apparently it is possible.
Is it related to prompt caching? Because I also don't know how it works internally, but I think it's a similar thing.
I think it's not related because in prompt compression, you are just creating a different prompt that is supposed to do the same, and it's shorter.
Okay, so
yeah, you are using an AI model to create something that is an equivalent of your prompt, giving you the same result with fewer number of tokens. It just drops parts of the words or something like this.
So it's like asking ChatGPT, hey, I have this prompt, can you please rewrite it to make it shorter, but not to lose any meaningful parts, right?
Yeah, maybe I don't know how it works internally yet, but I imagine it might be something like this.
Because I don't know about how exactly prompt caching works, but I know that Anthropic models, I think Claude Sonnet, for example, have it, which makes it cheaper for some coding tasks. Like if you always so there is a thing called Klein, which is an assister. It's AI assistant in that you can include in Visual Studio Code, like a plugin. And if you use Claude, they enable this prompt caching. I don't know how exactly it works, but with Claude Sonnet, it's cheaper because they have this prompt caching, and you don't send the entire code base every time with every prompt. It somehow gets cached and is reused, and you pay less. I have no idea how it works, but it looks like a good thing.
I think I read something about it in the OpenAI documentation, and they were caching the attention matrix of the values,
I see.
if I remember correctly. So they didn't need to calculate it every time. But maybe I just mixed up something.
But I imagine if two prompts have the same beginning and only different ending, then you can, if you have a model, so for part of the prompt that is the same, you can cache this, as you said, attention matrix, and just do the parts that are different. Maybe this is how it works.
I think this is the case here, but if anyone wants to learn how, then you should do it from the documentation, not from two people who could try to recall it.
Right. So what do you think about DeepSeek? Have you played with this?
Only in the Perplexity tool as one of the models. And but I like that there are a lot of new open source models. This is good for everyone. I like that there are models created outside of the United States. This is also good because one location having a monopoly on anything is never a good thing. So overall, I'm kind of enthusiastic. And when I use it in Perplexity, it works really, really well. So yeah, that's perfect for me.
You didn't have a chance yet to use it in your...
No, I wasn't using it in any project or anything like this, so I cannot really tell, but I use it as a user of a tool that uses it, and I'm satisfied with the result.
Okay, I haven't used Perplexity. I haven't even tried it, but I heard it's good.
Well, sometimes it still makes silly mistakes, like quoting something that didn't exist. or using Reddit as a very authoritative source of data, which is also not a good thing. But overall, it is fine. Yeah, you just sometimes have to check if the things that gave you are really true when you are asking about something important. If it's something you can just, I don't know, copy the code and test if it works, then probably doesn't really matter that much unless it's related to security. Then yes, check it. But if you're just doing it like, for example, I was taking pictures of things that I have in the fridge and asking what I can cook with this that isn't boring. And even if some of those things are not possible, I could realize really quickly that, yeah, I don't have this thing. It is not going to work.
Yeah, but overall it's helpful, right?
Yeah, overall it's helpful.
And then another article you wrote, and this article is called How to Use AI for Lead Classification on LinkedIn, where you actually ended up creating a Chrome extension.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about this project?
The goal here was I was sending some personalized invitations on LinkedIn. I was really writing them, not generating them. And the process looked like this. I was opening the page of someone, looking what they are posting there, if there is something AI related or not. Then if they had a link to a website, then I was visiting this website. And most of the links that people put on LinkedIn don't work. That sadly is the reality. Then I was checking if they have some active blog or whatever. And if yes, then I could read the content and write something very personal to them, so they had to accept the invitation. This method really works, but takes time.
And why you were like, was it for your personal connections or was it
yes, personal connections. Yeah. And the idea here was there are a lot of steps, but I can filter out someone. Yeah, so they don't post on LinkedIn. They have a website that doesn't exist anymore. It's not updated in years. Do I really have to check it myself? Apparently, no. You can use a tool for this, and it might use AI underneath to analyze the data from the website. And this was the purpose of this extension. So I was opening the profile of someone, clicking a button in the browser, was adding it to the queue, then looking for the data. And if the profile was good enough to even try writing to that person, was adding it to the to-do list. And yeah, it was decent, I would say. I don't use it anymore. But at least I learned how to build a Chrome extension. That was the biggest gain from this. But I don't use it anymore because I realized that if you just send someone a connection request without anything in the notes, the acceptance rate isn't significantly lower than when you put a personalized message.
Well, it depends. Like I receive so many requests per day.
Yeah, probably if someone is receiving a lot of requests, then it might make a difference. But for lots of people, they don't really receive any requests. So if you just send it to them, they will accept it.
Yeah, but I imagine this is for personal connections and for developing a personal network.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that this could be quite useful if you want to do sales, right? Or something like that. Or maybe you're looking for a job.
Yes, probably, because you could, for example, check if this person is posting about the thing you are saying. Of course, nobody is going to say on LinkedIn that I need to buy this and who is selling this. This is not going to happen, almost never. But at least you can check if they are in any way similar to your current customers. Yeah, then maybe they are interested. Yeah, I think you could use it like this. I never tried, but
because it can be like every person on LinkedIn is potentially a lead, and then you can understand like how qualified this lead is, like how good, how suitable, like what you try to sell, how useful is it for them, right? Do they actually have this problem? Are they in this domain? Like, let's say if I build a tool for classifying, I don't know, let's say I build a tool for AI monitoring. Then this person needs to be working with AI. Otherwise, if they, I don't know, sell shoes, they don't care about that.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at the sales navigator in LinkedIn, there's a tool that should have this feature, and it doesn't.
Uh,
It's so disappointing.
I remember, I think it costs like 100 euros per month or something like that. It's not cheap.
Yeah, yes, it's not cheap, and also if it's useful, it's kind of a
Yeah, I
thing you
tried.
can discuss.
Yeah, I
But
tried using it for 2 months, and what I found out is just sending personalized connection requests works as good as the Sales Navigator, if not better.
yeah, the best thing it can do is filtering out people, the profiles you have visited before. This feature is really useful, and it can do it.
So if
But it's not
somebody,
worth the money you pay.
Mhm. If somebody wants to learn how to build a Chrome extension and also include AI there, how should they do this?
How I did it. I had a backend service that I was calling from the Chrome extension, was not putting AI inside of the extension because I was not familiar with building extensions. So I needed to make it as simple as possible in order to actually make it work. So I did what I'm familiar with, which is backend engineering and AI, and I put
Mhm,
as most as I could inside the backend service.
mhm.
Um, yeah, and how to approach it? I used the cursor editor, so a lot of the
Okay.
code was AI generated. It
Mhm,
didn't always work, but I think it was, even though it didn't always work, it was a lot faster than I would do it myself. So
mhm.
still useful.
So do you, so you still use Cursor, right?
Yes, I still use it.
You use it as a paid product?
Yes, 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 yes.
Would you recommend
Uh,
people to try?
if someone is writing code at work and they can use it, then
Mm,
definitely yes. If someone is just doing it for themselves,
mhm,
maybe start with the free version
mm,
and then decide. Uh, but overall, mm, it helps a lot because it's not that it's going to generate the entire application from one prompt. It's not going to do it. But as a programmer, you're already used to splitting code into smaller functions, and this can generate those functions pretty well.
mhm,
And as we discussed before, part of the prompt engineering is putting examples. So if you, for example, write the function signature and the doc string in Python, then the rest it's going to happen automatically using console.
mhm,
It is just going to make it. Um, if it still struggles, I would recommend doing test-driven development in this case.
mhm,
Write the test. You'll say, okay, generate the test and then just modify
mhm,
whatever is important for you and use this test as an example. This
mhm,
that's going to work.
mhm,
So if you split the code in small enough functions, you will probably just have to write the signatures and function names and nothing else.
mhm. Did you have a chance to compare Cursor with GitHub Copilot?
I was using GitHub Copilot from the start when it actually was released for the first time. And of course, this tool was great because there was nothing else at that time.
Yeah.
And it was finishing your code like the single line. And Cursor is way, way better.
Mhm.
Um, I did not compare the current version of GitHub Copilot with Cursor.
Because I think
I don't know
they're
how
trying
it
to
works
catch up,
now.
right? They're
Yeah,
trying to catch up with Cursor.
that's that they're probably trying to do it. I have not checked this because, well, I already pay for the cursor. I'm not
Mm.
going to switch to another tool.
Yeah, that's the problem because like I already pay for ChatGPT. I also pay for Claude Sonnet, and I have GitHub Copilot for free because I contribute to open source. And like I already have all these 3 tools, and I'm thinking like, yeah, I've heard Cursor is good, but should I actually pay? And then if I should, then I should cancel like one of the um, licenses I have for like, I don't know, ChatGPT or Claude Sonnet, but I use them. But on the other hand, like the way I use Claude Sonnet, maybe with Cursor, I would be more effective. Because right now the way I use it is I go to Claude Sonnet, I describe what I want to do, then I copy, and then I use GitHub Copilot to actually help me complete these things. And then like I have this back and forth, which is annoying.
With Cursor, you don't have to copy. This is
Yeah.
the biggest improvement, because then you quickly realize that you copy a lot from different files. I mean, with Cursor, you don't have to do any of this. You just put the file in the context by referencing the name, and it's going to get the information from it. So this speeds up a lot the development. Also, there is this composer tool, which is like an agent. It can edit multiple files at once, or even run the command line commands. Of course, you'd have to confirm them, okay, unless you disable this function, which I don't recommend. So it's going to show you the command, and then you have to confirm to run it. So you can even use it for debugging or some configuration. It works decently well. Might not be perfect, but still faster than looking for the answer in Google.
Yeah, right. And there are so many alternatives. Like, I don't know if you've heard about Peer AI, which is like open source alternative to Cursor. There are also many more, and like every day there is a new tool that appears. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
at some point I just decided that I'm sticking to Cursor unless something really, really great is released, and I'm sticking to Perplexity unless something cool gets released, and Perplexity will not catch up with it. You just have to choose. You cannot buy everything, yeah, because
Do you also
not cheap.
use ChatGPT?
Sometimes, but I think I use Perplexity more often because you can switch off the search feature, and then if you choose the model from OpenAI, you have sort of ChatGPT inside of Perplexity. Of course, there is some system launch that's probably different, and it's going to give you a little bit different results. But you can use it as a normal chatbot. Yeah, so I do it like this.
Yeah, I was just curious, like when I started asking you about this Peer AI, and also there's Bolt, there's Lovable, like all these tools. Like, have you tried any of them, and like, did anything get your attention?
I started using Cursor very early, and I just stuck to it.
So it satisfies all your needs when it comes to programming.
Yeah, right now, yes. I don't even miss the refactoring features from IntelliJ anymore.
That's what you used before.
Yes, that's what I used before. Yeah.
So JetBrains is also trying to catch up. They have this JetBrains AI plugin that you can include in IDEA, but yeah, you'll have to pay extra for that, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
And you already pay for Cursor, so why switch, right?
Yeah, why switch if it's not way better? It's a little bit better, almost the same. Doesn't make a difference to me.
And I guess you get used to Visual Studio Code by now.
Yes.
It's like you would need
a
to
little
unlearn.
bit. Yeah, but you have to unlearn when you were an IntelliJ user at all of those automatic refactorings. Kind of right now, the only thing that you have in Visual Studio is, I think, the name. Maybe there are some plugins for different languages that add more refactorings, but absolutely forget about the thing that you have in IntelliJ for Java. You can do almost everything with the code automatically.
Well, comparing IntelliJ for Java is not fair, right? Because first Java is, I don't know what you use now for programming. Is it Python?
Python. Yes, Python.
Yeah, you see like Java is static language, right? And Python is
Yes,
dynamic.
it is. It's not fair, but still, yeah, you don't even. Well, it doesn't even try. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's not that it's not fair. Yeah? They just gave up.
But I think I tried GitHub Copilot for simple refactoring, like I don't know, splitting code into like extracting function or things like that, and it works quite well.
Of course, it's the same. I just
Yeah.
say that split this into functions and it's going to work. So yeah, it's. I'm not sure if you can say that you don't have to learn the language because at the end you have to know that it's going to work.
Mhm.
But maybe you don't have to remember all of the things that are in the standard library anymore.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's already a big improvement.
Mhm. And I've been playing with these tools, and I know front-end development a little bit, so I know just tiny bit of React, tiny bit of HTML, CSS. And of course, these tools, front-end tools, they develop quite fast. So even though maybe I was learning React, I learned a bit of React 5 years ago. Now, like the ecosystem has evolved and now it's different. So I have to kind of relearn it again. Um, but with these tools, what I can do right now is just give a prompt and then I have a project that kind of works.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the problem with that is it kind of works, but I have no idea what's exactly happening there. Right.
Yeah, that's one of the problems. But yes, it works, and I personally cannot do front end. I just don't know it. But with Cursor, I can do some front end. It's ugly, yeah, because it cannot do
Mhm.
design for you.
Yeah.
But uh, I'm not capable of doing even ugly front end without those tools. So it's already a big improvement.
What do you use for your website?
Jekyll. It's a
So
static page generator.
it's GitHub pages or
It's supported by GitHub pages, but it's not deployed there.
so you
So
deploy it
I use
over.
it. I deploy it on Amazon Web Services. They have a service for static pages, which name I don't remember right now,
Uh-huh.
but they have it, and I use this. But it is also supported by GitHub pages. You can
Mhm.
use GitHub pages.
So I think in AWS you just put your files in S3, right? And then you can attach your domain to this S3 bucket.
There
No?
is a service that downloads the code from a GitHub and builds a Docker and then deploys the Docker.
Uh-huh.
What was it? I will not find it right now. No chance.
Okay, well, it's not a problem.
A something. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. And I'm just curious. So you have written a lot, and I also want to start writing, and I want to get motivation for writing. So I'm wondering, does your blog help you finding clients?
Yes, a few people reached out to me from saying that they found the email on the blog. Definitely, it helps when you are teaching programming workshops. Not because the people are going to find you, but a big part of my workshop is when I'm sending links to my own articles, yeah? And this makes us. I think it makes a good impression that you really know what you are doing there.
Mhm.
So this helps a lot. Um, yeah, so definitely it works as a way to attract clients. It works as a way to show that you know what you are doing. And I can tell you that I started blogging not because of this. I just had a lot of ideas about programming and I wanted to impose them on other people. And blog
Mhm.
was a way to do it.
Mhm. And then eventually, because now
Yeah, eventually.
you work as AI consultant, am I correct? Am
Yes,
I right?
yes, that's correct. And
Mhm.
eventually, as you see the progression of topics in the blog, I switched to AI and then it was became a tool to attract the clients.
So you did not start it with the goal of attracting clients, but it evolved to such platform that you can use to actually attract clients.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, the goal was to write down some ideas and maybe send a link to a few people, mostly for my own team, and then it evolved. In the meantime, it was a tool for learning because I was learning about data science, so I had a lot of articles about this. Was just taking notes and writing them down, and then it evolved. So yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
was not marketing tool from the start. It
Mm-hmm.
kind of still isn't only this, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
those things are just notes to myself that I can
Mm-hmm.
then copy paste into
Mm-hmm.
projects.
Yeah, but it's well. So for that, I used to use Wiki, MediaWiki. So I had my own instance of
Yeah.
Wiki. But the problem with that is it's not presentable for like other people. So it's just a bunch of your thoughts, which is helpful when you need to copy paste, but it's not something that I can show to clients and they will, oh no, this person knows so much. I want to hire them. No. So unfortunately, and it's not like super discoverable on Google. So I guess a blog post for these
But
purposes work
if
way
you
better.
have it in the form of articles that can be published, I think it's relatively easy to turn it into a blog. Yeah.
Yeah, now with all these tools that we have, like with AI, now just a bunch of drafty notes can be turned into a blog post relatively quickly, I think.
Yeah.
So that's actually a nice like weekend project, right?
Mhm. The problem with that is never succeeded at making AI write in a style that I would like to
Yeah,
present
that's the problem.
as myself. Uh,
Like, did you try actually showing your example? So I did not manage to do it with long content, long form content, but I managed to do it with LinkedIn recommendations. So when I was leaving my previous company, I wanted to write a bunch of recommendations to my ex-colleagues saying how cool they are. And what I did is I wrote bullet points and then I said, I want you to write it in the same style as my other recommendations. And I posted these recommendations. And it did a pretty decent job. Of course, I still needed to edit it a little bit, but I think the style was more or less there. But the recommendations on LinkedIn, they're short term. For long term, it's probably not, doesn't work so well.
yeah, I tried a few times. There is a article on the blog that was kind of AI generated, and it is about generating articles with AI, so it was not really cheating. It was a tutorial.
Uh-huh.
And I did publish it. It was okay. If it was something that I could pretend was written by me,
Mhm.
yeah, maybe. But if someone was reading a lot of this content, then I think they will notice that this is not the same.
But do you use things like ChatGPT to help you get started with the article?
Get started not, but when I get stuck or I need to rewrite something, then yes. Because sometimes I tend to write really long sentences, and this is not
Mm.
good for the reader.
Yeah.
So if I run out of ideas to how to split this very long sentence into shorter ones, I just ask it to generate like 5
Mhm.
examples,
Yeah.
and maybe one of them is sort of okay, but I can at least start with this, yeah, and
Uh-huh. Right.
do the rest of my own.
Because like what I found for me is right now I don't have this blank page problem anymore when it comes to ChatGPT. So what I can do is just I can use the dictation function. I just can dump my thoughts to ChatGPT and then it will structure and I will get a starting point.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
quite.
but that is a time occasionally when I want to use the dumbest editor that I have because I don't want anything to finish my own sentences
Yeah.
at this point. And most of them are not useful for this anymore
I
because yeah,
see. I see.
if I start writing a blog post in Cursor, it's going to try to finish a lot for you.
Uh-huh.
Luckily, Obsidian doesn't do it yet. You probably can add some plugin to do something like this, but
Yeah,
I'm not going
Notion
to.
already added.
Yeah.
And Google Docs, I think they also have it. Oh, you can disable this.
Yeah, you can disable this, but then you want to use it again, you have to remember to enable this. Yeah, so I just switch to a different editor when I want to write something that is maybe not so perfect, but exactly what I want it to be.
Okay. It looks like it's been more than 1 hour. Time flies. So I
Yeah.
think we should be wrapping up. It was amazing talking to you, Bartosz. Thanks for joining us today, for sharing your experience with us, your journey, like everything you did. Thanks a lot. So it was pretty interesting for me. And thanks also everyone for joining us today, for listening in. And I guess, I don't know, do you want to say anything before we finish?
I'm not sure. I can just invite you to all to visit the blog. Maybe you can find something useful.
I will
There's a lot of
actually,
things you can copy paste from there. You don't even need to subscribe to the newsletter. It is always welcome, but just
so
use whatever is good for you.
I am going to now put the link. Where is it? So I'm going to put the link to your blog post in the live chat. Okay, Bartosz, thanks a lot, and enjoy. Well, I guess it's evening now for you.
Yes, almost 9 p.m.
Okay, so then have a good evening, and yeah, well, see you around.
Yeah, see you. Bye. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.